So it is time finally for me to enter the fray of the league, and I did and about what should I take? Should I take Dark Angels? Should I take the Obsidian Dragons? Should I take Orcs? No, of course it's the Admech. You'd be so annoyed at me if I didn't. And I'd be annoyed at me too, because it's a good fun way to play, and they're my first love of 40k, so we should go for them, or at least latter day 40k. Let's start with the HQs, and we do have the fairly usual ones of a Technoarcheologist Dominus, a Manipulus, a Skitarii Marshal, and a Technoarcheologist, Daniel. It's League, but he's still Daniel, okay? However, there's a lot more to it than some of my normal ones. So we do have the Warlord of the Dominus. He is using Luminescent Blessings. That's obviously such a great choice still in terms of being able to make transhuman on one squad. He does have the Solar Flare, which I don't always use in a lot of our kind of Tempest games because it's kind of not always that relevant. But from a competitive list, it's definitely great to have in your back pocket the ability to pick up and redirect a large unit into a different location is massive. The reason it's on the Dominus is because their firepower is then still going to be that much more effective despite the fact they've moved. Particularly important if it's on the Rangers, you know, things like that. So it's important to be able to get them out of dodge if I need to. Holy Orders wise, I've got a few of them going on. So we've got the Holy Order Loki on the Dominus. The Manipulus has the Holy Order Artisans, and Daniel has the Holy Order Magi, or Magi. That's one that we haven't used before or seen too much on the channel. Now, Magi, the really big one is the advanced bit of their action. Once you've created the action in the first one, their second turn can suddenly be exploding sixes. If you're sticking that on a bunch of 20 Rangers that are in rapid fire range with all of their extras, that's horrible. That's a strength 5 probably, AP 2 probably, and probably up to 80 shots. Hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, exploding 6s. Yeah, not much fun. Anyway, not much fun for the opponents. Might be quite good for us in the competitive sense of the world. The Manipulus, as I say, has the Artisans. That's because of being able to use his action to move to the advanced protocol and make Rangers have strength 5 on their guns. So really super important for that one. I've also given him Remnant of the Technomartyr. Very, very important for the Rangers. That ability to ignore the minuses is really, really important for them, either because you're moving them into position or because of dense. Our boards are going to have plenty of dense on because every board should have plenty of dense on. So that's really good to be able to ignore that. The Marshal does have a Warlord trait as well. I've given him Program Retreat. So between Daniel, so Technoarcheologist, and Program Retreat and Solar Flare, effectively means that I've got 3 squads that can get out of combat and still be viable to do something in the next shooting phase or combat phase. So that's super important with a lot of shooting armies to be able to do that. So it's not that thing of I've got touched and now I'm losing all my firepower. I've got 3 ways across the list to be able to do something about that. Moving on to the troops, and we do have 80 Skitarii. Not that many. Not that many at all. 2 units of 20 Rangers. One of them has enhanced data tether and omnis specs, and the other one just has an enhanced data tether. 2 units of 20 Vanguard, both with enhanced data tethers. Now, I would love to have found the 15 extra points to put the omni specs on, but as you'll see, I've spent those points elsewhere. One of them is the Holy Order Magi, for getting that in there, which I think is more viable at the moment and more important. Being able to ignore cover is massive for especially the Vanguard, really. I'd like to have had it on them, but it is what it is. Elites-wise, we've got 5 units of elites today. Now, we have from 2 units of 10 Fulgurite Electro-Priests. They still give me so many options, particularly it's the Mortal Wounds. They are the Mortal Wounds ability, but also the fact of being able to use a stratagem to be able to make a unit fight last, because they're a cult Mechanicus unit, is super important. So, you know, with loads of combat, you know, out there, it's still really important to be able to control some of that and being able to make someone not be able to interrupt or be able to trigger it so that they have to choose the right one to go first if it's their turn is super important. I've got 2 units of Infiltrators. Now, these are They're 85 points now. They dropped points in the last field round, which is good. I use them more for board control and more for something that has to be dealt with in turn 1. They're great for being able to get out onto objectives from the beginning. They can also be great just as a smite shield if you're against psychic heavy armies, because they're 2 wounds each, and you can just position them where you want to then control the flow of your opponent. So they become important. At 85 points, they're annoyingly exactly the same amount of points as a Ironstrider Balistarii at the moment now. So it's an interesting choice between, do I want more firepower, or in this instance, I've gone for the more board control and more options of what to do with them. Lastly, from an elite choice, I've got a big unit of 10 Ruststalkers. Now, these dropped in points as well, makes them really nasty, and again, mortal wounds. So I've got 3 combat units, all with the ability to pump out a lot of mortal wounds. Because of losing one of the veteran stratagems, veteran cohort stratagems, to be able to get in an extra attack, it's now more viable in my mind to put a larger unit of Ruststalkers in rather than multiple smaller units, because previously you could power both up with an additional attack. Now there's only one way of getting the additional attack, so therefore I want that on the bigger unit and make them more of a bomb rather than kind of being able to kind of nip and tuck with different units. Their unit of 10 as well means that I've got 2 Duneriders in the list, which allows me to be able to, with Lucius, I can choose whether I'm going to, in some games, I'm going to either strategic reserve one of the 3 combat units. I might use the Lucius Teleportarium stratagem in pre-game to be able to deep strike one of them. Particularly if that's on the priests, that works well with the Canticle, of course, so I can make that a 3d6, picking the 2 highest on that turn that they arrive. So that can mitigate that 9-inch charge kind of scariness. It does give me those 2 transports, again, where I can really get up the board quickly and be able to take objectives, move into space, and those Duneriders are just useful for being really annoying. With Lucius, giving them a 2-up armor against AP1 weapon, damage 1 weapons, you don't really want to fire big stuff at them because they're just an annoying transport, but all of a sudden you kind of have to, otherwise they're just going to sit there and tank it and be really, really annoying. Fast attack wise, and this is the last thing in the list, I have gone with 2 Ironstrider Balistarii. Now it's only 2, which is a bit contentious potentially as to why I've only got 2. It's only 4 las cannon shots. However, now they've gained core again, there's a couple of things about having the smaller unit. Being able to keep them in reroll range, both the Dominus for hits and the Skitarii Marshal for wounds, and being small enough to be able to relocate them and hide them easier, it means that I can effectively make them more efficient than a larger unit, because I can guarantee, or pretty much guarantee, I can position them in the right location to be able to get those rerolls when I need them. But it also means that I'm not putting loads of points in and reducing my board control. I think with a lot of lists where, various versions, I've looked at this when I've gone 6 Ironstriders, for example, you take away a lot of your other units from a board control perspective. And with Arks of Omen, meaning that not everybody's going to have lots of OBSEC, running the big 80 bodies of OBSEC is going to be really important for actually playing the mission and winning the games. So the choice to go lesser on the Ironstriders at the moment is where I've gone with. Like I say, I could easily, if I lose spectacularly, I could always change the list to be able to drop out the Infiltrators and add a bit more firepower if that's needed. But in a kind of all-comers kind of way, I've looked at this list as being, I've got some really nice, reliable firepower from those, some big multi-damage weapons when I need them, but I've maintained my board control, my combat, and importantly for me, that OBSEC with all of those troops. It's managed to be exactly 2,000 points on the nose, which with the changes in the field manual isn't as easy as it used to be with an AdMech army, because all the things that used to just throw into catching points up are all now free. But like I say, I've definitely got some things that I'm going to think about depending on how the list performs, but I'm pretty happy with how we're starting out there. So now it is time to discuss the secondaries. Now, with this list, let's get something off our chests right from the beginning. Hidden Archeovault. that one, is pretty much an auto-include now for the Adeptus Mechanicus. If you even take any of the good units in an AdMech army, you're probably going to take this secondary, and if you're not building towards it, I'm wondering why. It is, with the missions that we've got available, being able to just say, cool, it's done in my turn, I've got multiple units, so in my instance, I've obviously got infiltrators that can start on that objective that gets named. So I can do multiple waves of things starting there. Straight away, 5 points, turn 1, 5 points, turn 2, straight away. Causes my opponent to have to deal with them. I've then got things like 2 big units of Vanguard that can advance onto that. Oh wait, we're OBSEC. So we're going to take that away from those Arks of Omen's lists that don't have OBSEC. That feels like a good option. So not building for that probably would have been a bit of a mistake. So that's why I say I've got things like the Infiltrators that can really help me out with this. By taking the Dune Riders and being able to move combat units up to be able to be that second wave, and having the Vanguard to do a similar job, to be able to move quickly and get onto that those objectives, becomes super important. So I'm hoping that it should give me a really good way of being able to score fairly quickly on that secondary and give me other options to be able to move from. Now, whenever you're building in a way that's saying, hey, I'm going to hold an objective, I'm going to need to put things in there. For me, it also then thinks about, okay, so what else can I score at the same time? And the obvious one to look at is raise the banners. So raise the banners high is again, a really good one from being able to do what you have to do to win the game and get points out of it. Because I've got both the multitasking Cortex on one of my Ranger squads and Daniel's ability, it means that I can get 2 units to be able to do the action, i.e. raise the banners, and still be able to shoot. So that gives me, again, more options to be able to not be restricting my firepower while scoring victory points on the secondaries. So 2 options in there ready built into the list, which hopefully should give me some good play into both those objectives, both those secondaries. Things like having the solar flare, again, we've talked about it in the list, the ability to kind of jump a unit to somewhere else on the board. Also gives me another play like deep in turn 4 or 5 if I want, I'm on 10 points on the hidden secondary, for example, and I need to get that one more time. Cool, let's just throw a unit of OBSEC on there. It's mine, that's it, I've just got it. So that really kind of goes into that list building right from the beginning. Now, the third one has kind of often been a problem for AdMech, and it's still kind of a problem, but hopefully I've given myself some options. Now, against certain armies, in this league or in any tournament, then bring it down is probably a fairly obvious choice just because of the volume of firepower. You can, do some good work. That's kind of why I've went with the 2 units of Rangers plus the 2 units of Vanguard, because I need to play into both scoring the other 2 secondaries, but having some good firepower still against kind of vehicles, etc. So those big blobs of Rangers do really help, because no one likes making 80 or 60 or whatever it might be 4-up saves, 5-up saves with the AP2 on those things. Even if I have had to wound fairly heavily, it's not fun for any of the vehicles out there. Again, that's why I've kind of also included the Ironstriders, because giving me some reliability in terms of multi-damage can be helpful. So it's, again, options in there. Again, some armies, Abhor the Witch, obviously I've not got any Psychers in this army, so it does give me that option to be able to play for. But that third choice is going to be one where I'll have to make the choice based on the specific army, the specific deployment, and the terrain that we face in that moment. But hopefully I've got options into a number of different ones. They may be more killing-y ones, which normally I want to kind of avoid, stuff that kind of my opponent can actually be involved in. I want to be able to score without them thinking about it. But at the moment, I feel like that's the balance of the list with Adeptus Mechanicus, between being incredibly killy and trying to play the mission. So hopefully I've got that balance right. You'll tell me in the comments and we'll find out in the games. So there we go, that's the list. Those are the secondaries that I'm thinking about. You've heard a few of my choices in terms of the traits and relics that I've got all over the list. I'm interested to see what you think about it and tell me in the comments below. Have a look at that list in the description. Tell me what you think. What have I missed? I think we're in an interesting spot with AdMech, and I'm interested to see how we get on. It's going to be a hard fought few games, but I'm excited to get on with them. Have 80 Skitarii, 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 Skitarii. Not that many at all.